the first time about El Lugar, I think, was literally when they found the property. Could it be between 2014, 2015?
I think I first found out about El Lugar when I read The Place, actually. The book that was written by Gary Douglas. And then many years later, you know, there was always talk of the creation of the place as a real place that people could visit. And so, yeah, I heard about it later in a class and about the beginning of that project.
It was so long ago. I think we were in a class. Gary was talking about this land, one that described exactly the book that he'd written, The Place. And the first time I heard him talk about it, I didn't know why, but I was like, I want to be part of this project, whatever it is.
I don't even remember. I heard about it in, one of the classes access classes that we were doing.
I was at an event in Costa Rica, and they started to speak about this possibility of buying this property and that there'd be space for investors. And at that moment, I knew that I wanted to invest. I just knew.
I actually invested in El Lugar because at the beginning I thought I couldn't invest. I thought I didn't have the money. I would have need to find a very rich man to help me to invest. I had the point of view that my family should give me the money to invest in El Lugar. But there's been a moment when I was so attracted to the project, and I start asking questions about what do I need to have to be able to invest? And based on that, I just started. So in order to pay to El Lugar, actually, I increased the level of luxury, if you can call it like that, in my life. Normally, if you have to pay off something, you need to save money and to take, to spend less money, to cut off your expenses. I actually increased. I start adding more and more and more. I never went in a bad hotel because I had to pay for El Lugar. It's settled, but to me, it's been so clear that the choice I made to invest in that project has been contributing to me to make more money. And I know there were people wondering, what is that? But it happened. There's been like a demand in my world that I had to create greater and more. And I never stop. I'm still doing it. I'm still being it.
It's really interesting. The minute I heard Gary talk about it, I knew I wanted to invest in the future of what El Lugar could create. And for me, I didn't invest right away because I was married and he had very different vision of where we would invest our money. And it took me a few years to convince him. And I'm usually good at convincing, but he took a little longer. But I knew no matter what it was going to take, we were investing in El Lugar.
Well, again, it took me a year, almost a year and a half to start the process. And then finally I was done kind of listening to my head and going, I just know that this is where I want some money to go. This is where I want to contribute to. So I came up with the down payment deposit, and I didn't know. I didn't know how it was going to happen. And, I started to make some monthly payments, and then that last payment was due. A chunk of money that I had no idea where or what. We hear about this magic, like you choose and then things show up. Well, I received a letter in the mail about some money I had invested somewhere else that I totally forgot about. And it was the exact amount that I needed to pay off. Part of the gift of being asked a question, when I was asked the question, do you have enough money, by Mr. Gary Douglas? And immediately out of my mouth was a yes. And what I discovered in that instance was that I was actually stopping myself from creating more because I had the point of view that I had enough money, and now it was willing to look to what could I choose to add to my life. So from that point, I added my investment in El Lugar, I added 2 horses, throughout a different space, but there's something about adding more to your life that invites way more money, way more ease. So no, I didn't subtract anything from my life. If anything, it's only expanded and grown way beyond what I can imagine.
So I have a good friend, Andrew, who told me that he was investing in one of the casitas. And at the time, it was such a faraway concept that I could invest. I hadn't even considered it, not even for a second. But I did look at it and think, wow, how cool to be able to invest, how amazing that all these people are creating this. Didn't think it was possible for me. And then when I saw that he was investing, I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. And that was actually what inspired me to just choose it. I didn't have the money beforehand at all. I didn't have any clue how I was going to get the money. But in that choice to invest, what started happening was that my money flows increased, everything that I was creating became so much easier, and there was also this future that I started committing to in my own life, which was really cool. No, I invested in the biggest one available. I don't like to go small. And it was also such an honoring of me, whereas usually paying for things feels like, it could feel like, oh, why do I need to pay this bill, or whatever, you know, those points of view that we have. But this felt like I was gifting to myself, and the more that I did it, it was incredible how much easier it got as time went by. It didn't get harder, like, you know, the bigger the amount, the more difficult it was. Actually, it was the opposite. It became easier and easier.
At the time when I was first hearing about it, I didn't think it was something that I could ever really be a part of, even though I really wanted to. I was like, I just thought it was cool, but I didn't have, you know, I just graduated chiropractic school, and I wasn't, the mindset of having any extra money to put towards something, you know, besides just making my way month to month, and then, you know, a couple months was really strange. And then slowly, but I think it was like a year or two afterwards, I was finally like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Well, I started off with like the smallest share, but I didn't really want the small share. I wanted the big share, but I couldn't, you know, at the time I was like, oh, I just can't do it. And then I remember finally after a while, I was like, okay, I talked to you, David, and I was like, oh, I want to, you know, change me to the big share. I don't care. I'll figure out some way of like making these payments and doing this. Like, the funny thing was, I never realized how creative I was. Even when I didn't have money, I would always create money. But there's something I really wanted to do, and this was something I really wanted to do. So I started looking at it, you know, okay, I'm creating money for this, and so I would.